There you go.
Okay.
All right. Happy Monday morning, everyone. Thank you all for taking some time to join us for what potentially might be the last meeting of ours, which is unbelievable to say. Here's how we're going to spend our time together. I did send out some materials late last week for everyone to look at. Tony's going to walk us through the Garvey property on Seamans Road. We'll review the opinion of probable costs and trade cost breakdown of both the Garvey property, the Zero Newport Road, also called Bewley property. And then we'll see if folks are feeling confident in wanting to make a vote today to make a recommendation to the select board. And then just very quickly, we'll talk through the proposed content for the presentation at the community gathering. A week from today, and then we'll open it up for community Q&A. Does that sound good? Tony, John, Bob, anything from you guys?
No, I'm good.
Yeah, I would like Bob or John to start with, a review of the concept for the Garvey property. I think that will put the numbers into context. If I just start throwing numbers at folks, they're not going to really understand what it relates to. So Bob or John, I don't know if you want to do a quick recap of how Newport Road aligned, what that concept looks like. Then here's what the new Garvey property or the proposed Garvey site looks like. And then that will bring the cost really into context.
So Adam just shared a screen, Tony. So John, if you want to walk him through, I mean, you might want, if Adam, I guess like Adam's like cowboying this thing, maybe blow up a little bit, please. On the actual site.
This is the full site.
No, I'm talking about the site that PD is going to take. Sorry.
And I mean, John, if it's easier for you to share your screen, feel free to do that.
No, this is fine. If you could just zoom into the actual, there you go.
There we go.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you.
So Bob and I and Tony and the chief, we've looked at the Garvey site. Just big picture items is that if we look at the 25 parking spaces from the visitors down to the bottom of where the PD parking is, there will be a grading difference of 15 feet. So what we tried to do is level this site out as much as possible, simplify the building footprint to reduce costs and all that stuff, and then increase circulation. So we have wetlands to work around in the front, the back, the top. So it was challenging to get all the parking in the building and work around the wetlands, but with LBA and VHB, we were able to, kind of get this in here to where we minimize any sort of wetland disturbance. And then maintaining some wetlands, and creating as features in the front possibly. A majority of the site will be clear cut, but what we would like to do is selectively cut some trees in the front so that we can still keep, the main appearance of a wooded lot. So it's not just wide open, but also maintaining security and all that stuff as well. On the site, on the back, we have a secure parking all within a chain link fence. Each entry will have a gate. We do have two means of egress out of this for police access. One is typically not enough. We want to make sure that we have backup just in case, one driveway was blocked or not. So hence the two parking. The top one is a road, which would be then accessible to the back lots of the remaining Garvey lot, which I believe is roughly about 15 acres of parcel. This particular site that we're looking at right now is roughly 3 to 3.5 acres. And then we're basically collecting stormwater, all that stuff to maintain proper site requirements. Within the building is a 2-story, different from Newport. Newport was 1. That site was flatter, but this one again has a 15-foot drop, so it makes it very, very easy to accommodate a 2-story. So on the lower level, which worked out really great, is that we have the booking and intake, we have property evidence, which is all high security, which would be then protected by a foundation wall. And then it would have a walkout to the back so that we could have two overhead doors for the sally port, one overhead door for evidence processing, and then the rest of the stuff would be the department support spaces. On this level as well as we're utilizing facility support so that we can maximize the first floor with all program space and keep all that utility space downstairs so that we can maximize the first floor. With this one, different from the other, is that we have one stair and one elevator, so there are additional square footages with those and money. But with this configuration, we were able to stick within a 14,500 square foot total building workout. Keep in mind, these are only block plans. Once we go to the next level, is really where we figure out all the circulation, the walls, the doors, windows, all that stuff. If you can go to one of the perspectives, Adam, I think is on the next sheet. So this is, pictures kind of give 1,000 words. You can see the difference in elevation. We're creating retaining walls to, minimize foundation exposure, utilizing, site orientation to collect future solar panels if that would be the town's interest. But this is basically looking from the visitor parking towards the building. We have that main entrance. We'd have a covered entry as well. If you can scroll down to the next one, Adam. The next one is a picture from the PD secure parking. And this is looking at the Sally Port to the right, and then the property evidence to the left with one main entry for PD entrance.
John,
Anything?
can we just pause for a moment? We're going pretty quickly. I want to make sure that our committee has the ability to ask questions along the way. Any questions at this moment from the committee? Okay. All right. Keep going.
Yeah, so the only other things that I wanted to add is again, we tried to minimize foundation exposure. We don't want to see foundation, so we had to add retaining walls. We were able to step the building down in the back so that again, it has more of a siding appearance than foundation. And then again, something that, material wise outside, we would think about trying to tie it into the surrounding neighborhood.
Yeah, I would just also add, as John mentioned, this is just a blocking diagram. It's not an architectural design. So, if this were to go further, of course, it would be, a little more detailed. This is just a block, but John's right. It really shows the grade change, but it works really well as far as separating public and police, right, John? And also makes for a pretty compact building as well. I believe, Tony, you had commented on that as well. So it seems to work, it worked pretty well. I mean, there's a little more site work here than it would be on Newport Road, but it works well.
I think if we were to take anything out of this from this site to Newport, grade changing is totally different, but we can utilize that with the building configurations. It is ideal to have one story, but in some cases it's just not possible. Hence this particular site, but it doesn't provide any sort of cons to it. I think the locations of the Sally Port, the property evidence on the lower level, works out great. The only downside is it just adds, a stair and an elevator, which is, again, it's just cost, but I think we can easily accommodate those within the budget.
Can we go back up to the block plan, from the inside block plan, just for us? Perfect. One question that did come in late last week was around the size of the dispatch area. And the question was, what if in the future we downsize our dispatch? What could that space be used for? And I believe, Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, you might be talking at the community gathering about dispatch. Is that right? Or am I making that? Okay. So I believe that Chief is already planning on speaking about dispatch at the community gathering next week. But Tony, John, Bob, Do you guys have any insight into whether or not there are towns that you've worked with that have downsized their dispatch? And if so, what have they used that space for?
I mean, I can start off for LBA. The people we're working with are actually upsizing their dispatch, not downsizing it. Usually by one console, right, John? Maybe they have two, they're gonna go to three, or they have three, they may go to four. Because that's expensive space to build, and you don't want to come back later and, you know, if you have, let's say, a dispatch supervisor's office, right, John, or a break room, and if you want to add a console, you would lose one or both of those, right? And also that space tends to be, you know, a little more expensive to build out, because of the technology that goes in, cooling and race floor and so on. Can you also change that space to something else in the future? Absolutely, you can. You can always decommission that space to do whatever you want with it, you know, in the future. But I can't say that, I think, John, I think you agree with this. I can't say that a single client that we're working with in the last 5 to 7 years have actually downsized their dispatch.
Yeah, from my standpoint, Ashley and the committee, I'm not working with anybody who's downsizing or decommissioning their current operational center. What it could be used for is a more regional, local, or more local emergency operations center, given that it would have the technology in it if you were to repurpose it later. Currently, I'm working with a number of communities who are regionalizing, and the three of them right now that are going into one particular rec center, regional emergency comm center, are holding their dispatch areas for future emergency response areas. If there were a call to come in, or there were a natural disaster event that needed local entities in a space, that's what they would use that for. I've got another community that I think some of the question over the weekend was the future of dispatch center. I have an 18 position dispatch center that is currently in design as a complete backup to the current 18 position, so that if something were to happen in this 18 position dispatch center were to fail completely, they have a redundant space off a separate grid, separate utilities, separate site. So you can imagine that's not a small cost to design and build an 18 position dispatch, which will pretty much sit there as a backup in case there's an event. And that's not being downsized at all. That's pretty significant.
Follow questions from our committee on the dispatch? Is there anything from the select board that they want to add about dispatch, or we? Okay, all right, and we know that it'll be discussed a week from today. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you, guys.
So I guess I'll jump in then to the Garvey site, as in comparison to Newport Road. We kind of went over that. Adam, I do have that opinion of probable cause that has 0 Newport Road, 198 Main Street, and the Garvey site aligned. If you could jump to that document.
Nope. This one?
No, the one with the three of them.
Right
yes.
there.
This one?
December 3rd. Yes. So what this does, you've seen this document before, Newport Road and 198 Main Street dated 9/30. We dropped Garvey site, Seaman Road site in on 12/3. And you see right away the square footages that John and Bob were talking about. Newport Road, very spread out, didn't need the elevator space, didn't have 2 stairways, that kind of thing. So that one was coming in at about 14,862. It was a little bit more refined of a floor plan than the block plan of Garvey. Garvey, however, even with the additional stair and the elevator, was able to be condensed to about 14,500, as John mentioned. If you look at the cost per square foot on this sheet right in the middle there of that cost exercise, Newport Road was coming in at about 449 a square foot for construction, not site, right? But just the building. And Garvey, little less square footage, more compact design, so less foundation, less roof, less area altogether. It's coming in at about 437.50 a square foot. Where the plan kind of takes a change is in that significant site work. And so you think about Newport Road, there's like a 5 to 6 foot difference in slope from the front to the back of the building or in the general building area, as opposed to the 15 feet that John mentioned. The retaining walls, the excavation, the site work, the grading, all of that adds a couple $100 in cost per square foot. But at the end of it, it goes from $800 to $1,000 a square foot when you add the site work in, a little bit more than $1,022 a square foot. So just kind of working down that sheet right below the gray bar where it says site earthwork and site prep, you see Newport Road was about $1.6 million. If you recall, Main Street site, all the utilities are right there, very compact site, very small area to deal with. We got, $737,000 worth of site work there. And then the Garvey site jumps up to 2.6. So about $1 million more than the Newport Road site when we factor in the retaining walls. There was a large storm retention area in there, a drainage pond, if you will, that needs to be created. The clearing, the prep around the site work and the wetland work that needs to happen. When we calculated all that out, it added about $1 million to the site work component. So total cost of construction escalated. You see that in the big blue bar there. Newport Road was projecting in, again, 2026 is our escalation midpoint, 5% per year. That one comes in at 8.438 million, right? Almost 8.5 million. And the Seaman Road site comes in at almost 11 million. So about 2.5 million there in growth if we carry this out for the next couple years and go with that extensive site work package. So I'm going to hold there on the building. There's soft costs that migrate down below this, other things that need to be considered. And I don't think any of us have calculated a number for the actual procurement of the Garvey site.
Yeah, we can pause there for a moment. I did have an opportunity to connect with Kim and Adam, who met with the Garveys Friday morning. It's my understanding that the way that conversation went was they are open to entertaining numbers that the select board would pull together, similar to what they did for Zero Newport Road, a reasonable number, probably within the same realm of what the cost is for Zero Newport Road. Is that a fair assessment? I'm seeing some heads nodding. Okay.
So then, because of the way this sheet works, furniture, fixtures, equipment, all of the soft costs then below that cost of construction, they're all simply a formula of a cost percentage. So as the building went up, furniture changes, soft costs, tell data, all of those things basically play off the 14,005 versus the 14,800. So some of those go down. As a, for instance, the architect civil engineering fees actually go up because we think there's going to be more civil engineering associated with, as Bob and John were describing, step down foundation walls, retaining walls, drainage, other things that would go into the architecture and engineering to support the facility. At the bottom of the second page, Adam, if you scroll down, we're really looking at the difference between 12,062, 12,062 for Newport Road, and about 14,008 and change for the Garvey site. So a bit of difference there. The Newport Road does have 350 in the site acquisition line item. The yellow highlight that you see there under Garvey is a blank spot where we would need to plug in the cost of the site acquisition. And I think the other thing that I'll close with is looking at the total cost of construction versus soft cost percentages down below. If you've remembered anything from our time together, I've always kind of said you're between somewhere 75-25% of hard cost. Soft cost is really where these projects like to be. Good value in your building. You're not overspending on soft cost. And in this particular case, Garvey kind of fits right in that 75-25, 74-26 split. Newport Road works out good. It's 70-30. And you see on the 198 Main Street, with a $2 million significant site acquisition cost in there, how that can throw off a number of values. So you're spending a lot in soft cost, not getting as much building, even though your building would work, it's just skewing that proportional number. So that gives us a good value when constituents are looking to vote for a project. Where is the money going? Is it going into the hard cost of the building? Is it a good value for this building long term? And we like that to be in that 75-25 split. So that may change a little if we drop a number into that site acquisition. But I don't think in response to Ashley's review of it that it would be similar, and they're looking to be consistent with something that supports the project. I don't see that significantly changing our proportions down below.
Let's pause there, committee. Yeah, go ahead. Now let's just who has questions. Okay.
Just reflecting back on the discussions out on Newport Road, that part of Seamans Road seems to have trouble moving grown adults from one side of the road to the other, to the point that the college puts security guards in the middle of the road directing traffic. So I assume that somebody's going to want sidewalks, somebody's going to want traffic control, somebody's going to want all the stuff we talked about out on Newport Road as part of this package on Seamans Road.
Phil, I can comment on security guards directing traffic. They do that for 1 weekend a year, for a long weekend. Put traffic.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee on what was presented this morning? Annie, I don't want to lose sight of you remotely. Are you thumbs up? No questions? Okay. Thank you. Well, then do you want to stop sharing? Sure, we can stop sharing. Perfect. There we go. We can see faces. Does anyone want to make a motion to vote? Oh, yeah, go ahead, Jen.
Actually, couple of questions. So right now we're looking at potentially a 14.8 or a $12 million project.
Yeah, and I would say on the Seamans Road with the potential cost of the land, it's probably around 15. With, you know, if we say 350 for land, which is what it is the potential price for 0 Newport Road, then that probably puts it right at about 15 or a little over.
Okay. I think we're gonna have trouble selling a $15 million police station to the town. And you need to be wide-eyed about this. And, you know, the only way of taking costs out of this project is to reduce the size. And I think if you want a new police station, I think we're gonna have to look at making some difficult decisions as far as paring this down to get it, you know, to get it approved. That's my concern. And I, you know, the past couple of weeks, I had a number of people come up and ask me about what's going on. And they all feel that we need a new police station. But when they start looking at what the costs are, they just don't feel the town can afford it. And, you know, if we want to be back here 2 years from now, trying to do this again, that's my feeling based on the discussions that I had. So based on that, I think we're gonna have to look for ways of taking cost out of this project. And nobody likes doing that, but there also is the reality of how are we gonna pay for it? You know, the town has a number of other issues that are gonna need to be paid for over the years. And it all depends what you want. And I think this is a beautiful station as designed, but I don't think you're gonna get it approved.
Are there any comments from anyone? I think one of the things that I have talked with Kim and some of the select board members about is around that topic of how are projects funded and what else is potentially on the docket for the town meeting to pay for the next few years. And, you know, my recommendation to them has been that there be some information sessions leading up to town meeting on how do projects get funded. We have a number of bonds rolling off in 2025, 2026, 2027. What does that potentially look like for our taxpayers? And so as I've come into this and knowing that we really have we have this project, which is very much a need and not a want, how do we educate our taxpayers and residents on the need of this project, but also how does the town educate our taxpayers on how things are funded and what do, you know, it's not all paid for in 1 year by taxes, so what does it actually look like? And then also, what is also going to be looked at in terms of projects? And I don't know if there is a list of things that we know, projects that we are going to have to pay for. I know that there are topics that have been circulating as potentials. I don't know if those things have been solidified. And so in my mind, I think our role is to make a recommendation to the select board of, hey, we know we need a new police station. Here's the one that we would recommend. And then it's really up to them to put that forward to our taxpayers and then educate folks on how things are paid for. Is that fair? I hope I'm not speaking. I'm started putting words in your mouth, but that's how I'm viewing it. And I hear you, Jeff, because I am carrying the same narrative. And I think it's all on our minds. We are living in a world that is much more expensive than it was 5 years ago. And there are a lot of unknowns on what these next few years would look like in terms of cost of living. But I also have to believe that our selectmen and Kim also have that on their mind as well, as they are playing a game of chess of what are we putting forward to our taxpayers to pay for and what that looks like. So I don't really know if that's an answer to your statement, but I do think it's a little bit of clarity of just how I'm coming into it and thinking about the police station project. And I think you're right. I do think it's going to be a tough sell, but a lot of that my hope would be ironed out with transparency in us doing information sessions simultaneously with our town leadership doing similars on how things get funded in general. there any other, did you have more questions, Jeff? Just that one. Yes, Bill.
Just flip the top, Bill.
There we go.
So Jeff, you think there's a difference between 15 and 12? The 12 is saleable, but 15 isn't?
I do think, people are going to want to see that this group took some really hard looks at what was presented. And, most projects are a certain amount of compromise. And I think if people understand that, hey, we started with a $15 million project, and we had to work with the police department, we worked with the town, and we figured out ways of taking $3 million out of this project. That is much easier to stomach as a taxpayer, and it's also easier to sell. And again, I'm in favor of a new police station, but I also am very much of a realist, and we need to make sure that what we present to the town has the best opportunity of being successful.
So I would be interested in having you all committee talk about what will be lost. I sense I'm sort of working off 15. What will be lost if we went with the $12 million proposal on Newport Road? What would you all say is the benefit of starting with a different site, taking money out as opposed to having a site that is already down at 12?
Well, that certainly helps. And then, in situations like this, I think you're better off. If we decide, okay, we're gonna go with a $12 million project, handing it back to, the police department and let them prioritize. I certainly am not in a position where I can tell you what is most important for police station. There are concerns. People have talked to me about, well, the town really doesn't have that much growth potential moving forward. And so my proposal would be, okay, can we take, $3 million out of the project? If so, allow the police department to say, okay, we can shrink these sizes, and the only way of really taking cost out of this project is to take size out of it, and also go with the less expensive site plan. But I do think, again, we have to be realistic if we want to get something through. And it's very easy, if you're against spending $15 million on a project, to convince people that, oh, you're wasting the town's money.
Sure, I think throughout this process, it does not feel like what is in the plan or what we've looked at, that there's anything ostentatious. We're not looking at game rooms. We're not looking at things like that, which is what I have seen in other projects that I've run, where we are looking at game rooms and yoga rooms and sort of these nice to have spaces where, and I'm also, again, not an expert in police stations, but it feels like what we have been presented is, in my mind, almost a bare bones of what a police station would need. We've had many conversations over the past few months over space, and it feels like the police department feels that the space that's been presented is the right space. I guess what I would ask is, does that feel like the minimum space, or is that a sort of middle of the road, or is that like, hey, no, this definitely gives us a lot of growth space? And I don't know as though we've heard that the space plan that we've seen in the block plan is larger than what would be needed. Is that, I don't want to put words in your mouth, so I'll stop.
No, I think, I don't think that it's certainly oversized, keeping in mind that we are very undersized for what our needs are right now. And I mean, I worked for hours and hours with LBA and Tony on this space needs analysis that the committee looked at. Worked with the lieutenant on it as well. Just this is where New London Police Department should be size wise, and need wise. We compromised on a few things throughout that process, and I don't think that it's not extravagant by any means for where the police department should be at this point, and we are not, and where I would see the police department in 20-30 years.
So there, when you were working with LBA and colleague, oh, Tony, give me 1 second. I see your hand being raised.
So though,
Oh, you need to go. Or do you need to
No,
go?
go ahead. Just
Oh, okay.
back to me when you're ready.
Okay, that there were conversations around, trade-offs. Can you talk a little bit about what some of those trade-offs were? If you were, I know I'm asking in real time, if you remember off the top of your head what some of those trade-offs were.
I don't remember right off the top of my head. I know that we talked about a lot of things. John might be able to chime in on some of the things that we talked about throughout this.
I remember the notes, the handwritten
Like it.
notes on the
Yeah,
documents when you
yeah.
guys were walking through
I
things.
think that at one point there was like an office for the K-9 officer, and I'm like, that position doesn't require its own office, so take that out. I don't know, John, if you have any other recollection of some of the.
Absolutely. So typically every police department will have an agility and a fitness room. What we did was we took an agility room of 600 and something square feet. If you multiply that by the total square footage, it works out to be a large number. We took the agility and combined the training room and the agility room together so that we could, reduce 600 square feet out of the building. We also did hot spots or hot desking for investigation patrol so that we didn't have a desk for each officer. There's basically just touchdown spaces so that we could minimize sizes. So we've done every trick that we have to minimize and maximize program and circulation space so that it's not larger than it needs to be. It's sized to where it should be. And the square footage kind of aligns with other surrounding towns your size right now. We're working with the town of Lincoln. They're right around the same size as New London, and their police station is going to be opening probably about in a month or so, and their square footage was right around 14 and change. So I would say that the square footage is in line of where you guys want to be and where you want to go to or for the future. I think if we start taking square footage out of the program, it's going to compromise the department, the facilities, and basically be where you guys are now. Last thing I'll say is that every police department has all of the same things: booking and intake, property evidence. Those type of departments cannot be eliminated. They're needed for day-to-day operation. And then there's just certain sizes and circulation and security that comes along with it that can't be compromised. Really, the only compromise that we could have is really in the office space, and that'll be dictated on how many offices are on duty or in the future. And then the training room would be a larger space. But again, we've talked about having a certain size training room for future training, things like that. So those are just kind of the few things that we worked with the chief and Tony and Bob to get to where we are now.
Yeah, I mean, John said it perfectly. And also the sizes we're using for things like offices, workspaces, are very a traditional, proven sizes that we're using in other smaller communities, so that we're not inflating each room or every space. I mean, if you were even to cut each one back 10%, we're not saying you should, but then you're still probably going to be you're still going to be, range of 13.5 or 30. You're not going to get to 10,000 square feet. John put it really well that a modern policing facility needs what it needs operationally, and it's not sort of a menu that we could pick and choose from. It's necessary. So, I think, again, everything else John said, ditto. He did a great job of explaining that.
Tony, did you still want to say something?
Yes, I wanted to just talk about, the 12 to 15 million. What we shouldn't get too enamored with today is thinking that one of these numbers is exactly the right number. The ultimate number that we end up at is probably going to be somewhere in that range, 12 to 15 million. Locking in on the 15 million or on the Garvey site today, there's a lot of work to do with LBA, with the police, with the town, clearly, whether we're adding sidewalks or traffic controls and signaling. Newport Road has its own set of development issues. So, if you look at the opinion of probable cost, there's $600, almost $700,000 in escalation. I don't know if we're going to go into an economy that's running at 3% or 6% or 8%. There's contingency money in here of over $1 million in contingency. So there's still the ability for big swings in any one of these numbers. And I think what the goal should be is to say, where do we really want a PD, right? Everybody in the community agrees that there's a need, not sure what the size is, but there's a need for appropriate accommodations for a PD. Is Seaman Road better than Newport Road? I think if the committee can look at that, not from a cost standpoint, but operationally, what is the best development for the community? And then many communities that are going through what you've been going through will ultimately say, okay, we want to raise an appropriate, we're going to go to the Board of Selectmen at our next town meeting or whatever it is to procure a site and raise and appropriate $1 million to further the development to find out, is it 14,008? Is it 14,500? Is it 15,000 square feet? There's a lot of work to do, but that's going to take, maybe with the acquisition of the property, $1.5 million that you're going to raise and appropriate to continue this further. There are not many communities that I'm working with in the past, several years when the economy has been what it's been, that simply jump into a project and say, well, let's raise and appropriate $15 million and see where we end up. There's often that interim seed money that really gets John and Bob to look at, is it synthetic slate roof? Is it a 25-year architectural shingle? Is it a 50-year synthetic slate roof? Are we epoxying the floors? Are we sealing the floors? Is it a brickwork building? Is it a clapboard building? Is it a hardy plank building? There's a lot of decisions that can take, if you look at the raw cost of the building, an $8,438,000 to 10 million. It could be the same square footage, but it could be wildly different in fit and finish and infrastructure at this stage. So I caution you all to vote on a 12 million and think that's the number. That 12 could end up 12.5, 13. We're just not there yet. It could end up at 10, 11, right? There's a lot of work to do. Jeff is right. And there's still a lot of compromise back and forth with PD, with the community on where we end up. This is not the bottom line today. Go ahead, vote on this and we're done. there's a lot of work to do.
And I would just add one more thing with Tony's too, because between Tony and LBA, we're working with a lot of communities, you know, and we want to assure this group that in the town that we're not just out there to spend a bunch of money, right, John and Tony, and that we have listened carefully. We, as the chief, you said yourself, we work closely with you. We listen to the committee. Tony's right. There's a lot of work to be done, and maybe to find monies within that scope that could be reduced. Could be site, it could be building finishes without compromising the quality of the project. But and I know it's hard to get the message out to the town and taxpayers. I live in a town, I pay taxes in New Hampshire, so does John. And so we're all faced with the same issues, right? And a lot of our clients are faced with those issues, right, John? I mean, the same exact issues.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, all we could do as a group is educate the community, and that, I'm not saying that in a punitive manner, or share that information with them and help them to wrap their heads around why is this really needed for a long term, rather than doing something that's going to be outgrown in 5 years or 10 years, and then what, right? So what you guys are saying is what we're hearing in every community we're working with, every one of them.
Thanks, guys. Bill, did you? Go ahead, Sam.
Actually, Tony said it. Is the committee focused principally on one site at this point? I keep hearing the 15, because I'd like to be sure that that's where you all are, because nobody's talking about what might be gained by sticking with Newport Road or even Main Street at this point. It seems like the discussion this morning is all about the new kid on the block. And so, if you could start with $3 million less, would you all think that Newport Road's, all the problems with Newport Road are taken care of because it's less? Or is what Tony was saying about simply, we've got to make a decision on the site and then we go back to working on details?
I suspect the focus has been on Garvey because this is the first time we're seeing the information on it. And I don't have a good pulse from the committee on where everyone's sort of thinking in terms of location, or if we do even want to move forward with either one of them. And I'm going to pass it over to Bruce.
And I'm gonna put the pressure on the chief.
I
From
just turned my mic away from me.
your perspective, does one site function better for a police department, for your police department, than the other?
I think both sides present some advantages and both sides present some challenges. I don't even like the word challenges. You know, we'll start with the Newport Road site. It's in a very commercial area, it's visible. There's some land there, but there's also some wetlands and some other issues that we would have to contend with there. The Garvey site, I like that for its serenity, if you will. It's a little bit off the beaten path, so we don't feel like we would be in such a fishbowl. I like the idea of people turning into the police station on a road instead of a driveway. I think that would be helpful if that site were to go forward. I like the block diagrams that they've put together for the Garvey property. I can see how, I can see that station in my mind. I can see how that would work for those things on the bottom. So I think both of the sites are worthy. And I think it depends on what the committee is feeling in terms of where can you envision a police station more so for your town. And I think that would be helpful for the committee to consider.
And Annie, I know you wanted to say something as well.
So yeah, John and Bob have both said multiple times that a one-story building would be better than a two-story. Is that something that we should really weigh heavily and consider the Newport Road site because of that, because of that discussion? That's where I was going with that.
My initial thought, Anne, is no. One story, two-story, or one story is not better than one or the other. One story, every department wants to be on the first floor, which you'll see on most buildings, but there's no issues with a two-story either. So I wouldn't base that on your decision. I think Tony hit the nail on the head is I would be thinking about location. Where's the best location for the department and then work from there. Because again, we're at 10,000 feet right now and we need to go to other steps to figure out what all the parts and pieces of this and where we can save money. Because again, this is just initial numbers. And, we can select, from metal siding to clapboard, there are two different numbers where we can try to, balance the budget as best as possible.
Great, thank you.
Question, excuse me, what type of responsibility as committee members do we have a, fiscal responsibility to present the most economically feasible project, or I'm not sure in that sense. I'm the newest member here, and what as select people, what are you looking for this committee to do? What do you want, other than a recommendation that hopefully then is going to be approved by the town and we are able to take care of what we need to do?
So I'm gonna go back and agree with what Tony said 4 or 5 minutes ago, that the important issue now is for you all to tell us, recommend to us what you think is that you all, including the chief, what is the preferable site of the ones that are available. And we will go to work with the town and with our professional advisors on where the cost comes out, because I hear us saying it could be all over the place at this point. I think that's probably true, but I at least am looking after all these years for somebody to say, here's the site we want you to work with. We know that it's somewhere between $10 and $20 million.
I think, if I may, I think it's really important for this committee to not be short-sighted and to remember that this building and this facility will house the police department operations for the next 25 plus years. What I wouldn't want to see happen is for the police chief in 10 years to come back before the town and say, we've already outgrown this space and we need more. And there to not be any sort of room for expansion on whatever site you choose, or so certainly cost, I think, Jeff, is absolutely important, but I would want the committee to make sure that you think of the future of the station and what the needs are today, and what the needs are going to be in the future.
Susan, I know you had your hand up.
Yes. I have a question about the sites, the two sites. And the Garvey property is absolutely stunning and does lend itself so well to a beautiful site. And I agree with Emily as far as we have to think about the future. But my question is, the Garvey property seems to me, in my eyes, to be more in a neighborhood. Does that pose a problem for those who live in that area to have a police station so close to their roads? And, there are a few people that live close that are seated here today. And if you have any comments about that, I think we as a committee would appreciate that, because I think we need to be very mindful of our neighbors and what we're proposing, where we're going to propose it, either one. And I know it does, the other one backs up to Hilltop. So, I think when we make our presentations to the community, that is something that we have to be mindful of our neighbors and giving consideration to them, in addition to being mindful of our costs.
I've had conversations with folks that live both on Seamans Road and is it Sergeant Road is the first road as you're going down? Okay, who have actually approached me saying that they are very much in favor of the police station being on Seamans Road. And I have also heard narratives that there are folks at Fenwood, Great Pines, and Hilltop who are very nervous about having a police station so close. I don't know if that is a collective thought, but those are just narratives that I have heard on both properties, both unsolicited coming to me. But I think that to your point, Susan, I think, let me back up a little. The way that I am really thinking about this is almost like unlocking the next level of a video game. Our role here is to make a recommendation to the select board. The select board will then continue down the path, and maybe that will involve us or a subset of us, and maybe it won't, figuring out what does the cost actually look like? And then come back to be able to really pull together that presentation. And I suspect that some of that will also be talking to those neighborhoods and understanding where's the overall comfort level. Knowing, that Chief has said that both sites, she doesn't have an opposition to either, or a strong opposition to either. I would imagine that that would sort of be the next level of this project of really thinking through that, and that our purpose is really to make that initial recommendation and allow them the space and time to then continue on to sort of finalize that package. That's my thought.
You guys still there? Long pause.
I think we lost them.
Oh, did I?
They just went dark.
Yeah, all of a sudden you went deadly quiet. It's like,
well, they went dark too.
Oh, on my screen. Well, I mean, yeah. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
I got Adam Ricker, but it's blank.
I can still see them. They're just frozen.
Oh,
they must be having an issue with it as well.
And I have to jump off at like 9:40, and I'm not sure if I jump off, the whole thing goes kaput.
Oh, you sent the invite.
Y'all get to stay on.
Oh, hey, John, can't Tony can delegate the not the lead, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
I believe you can.
Yeah, make someone else a host, Tony.
Yeah, exactly. Host. Thank you. I couldn't think of the right word. Sorry. Yes, host. Correct. I think they must have had. It seems like I was on a call earlier, John, with a few people from our firm, and they were saying they were having a lot of bandwidth issues this morning. We're around here. Everybody's in New Hampshire.
So
and
Ashley just said that they lost internet.
Oh boy. All right.
Okay.
Oh, plus I think I'm like recording somewhere.
Yeah, I think you're still recording. Assuming it's you that's doing it.
Well, it was recording to the cloud somewhere.
Yeah, it says at the top of my screen, it says this meeting has been recorded.
I got host tools. Chat, rename, unmute. I don't see anything that says assign a different host.
So if you go, let's see. Does it, do you have anywhere, Tony, where it says like that you're the
I got
host?
it.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I'm making John Adams the host.
They're going to join via hotspot here shortly.
John, I think you're the host now.
Yep, I am. Thank you.
So they lost internet completely, huh?
Yeah, but they're going to join via a hotspot, so they'll be back on shortly.
I have a 10 o'clock meeting, but I mean, I could stay on for at least till 10. I was gonna make a comment that, you know, only the community or people in the community know what the support or opposition for sites would be. I mean, the three of us don't live in a community, and that's one less thing that you want to worry about, is having people, be upset about where it's being put. You know.
I know it's a tough one too, because I feel like I'm 50-50. I mean, I like both spots, so.
I mean, the reality is that, this is not a fire station where they're coming out sirens blazing at 2 a.m. If there's a fire.
Well,
I mean, they're
that's
on the street patrolling, so.
That's what we need to educate though, because I feel like people in the Hilltop are thinking that that's the case. So we need to make sure that they know that they don't leave the station with sirens going.
I mean, I know what John and Tony think about it, but I think we're on the same page. So and I don't know that having a police facility, a nice new police facility, is going to be a detriment to anybody's, property values. I don't know, but
Says, John, I think you got to unlock the meeting now. I apologize for all the technical issues, but I got to jump. I'll
no
follow
problem.
up with everybody later.
Drive
Bye.
safely. Bye. Is the meeting somehow locked, John, or is it open to anybody to rejoin?
I had it.
It says meeting locked, but I don't know how to unlock it.
All right, hang on.
I'm not sure I've seen that before.
Yeah, it says it up in the top left corner.
Oh no, I know. I'm not sure I've seen it before.
So they're trying to sign in, but it says it's locked. So.
I don't know how you unlock it. I've
I
never
don't
really,
either.
to be honest with you, I haven't really heard that before. We use Zoom all the time. That's our jam.
Hold on, I'm gonna Google it.
Oh, really, I've never run across that. Have you, John? I've never run across that.
No, I haven't. I'm trying to find where the heck is it?
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Okay, click on the security icon.
The security icon.
Oh, so if you go up to the top browser, like the top of your browser,
Yeah.
let's see. Mhm.
Come on.
So weird.
Yeah, it's very odd. I've never seen that before. Right, John? I mean, we could send a new invite, I guess.
They're doing that right now.
Okay.
Ashley said they're gonna email it.
Button. Participants. Select unlock. Yeah, so it says to go to the more button, and then there should be select the unlock meeting option. I don't have that option.
I don't see that either.
Well, if they're gonna send a new, a new invite, I guess maybe then we're okay. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, Adam's sending one. Let's see. Oh, they just sent one. So we
so
can
we should
send
hang up on this one.
Yep.
Yeah, so I guess I'll stop recording.